Good evening, guys. Can you hear me? Before starting, let me give you my brief introduction. My name is Abhay Agarwal, and I have been working with Cognition almost 5 years now. I have a total of 19 years of work ex. I started my career in 2001 after doing BCA, MCA, and MBA from Nursing Manji, Mumbai. And since then, I work for various organizations. I work for 9 years approximately in different organizations. I work for GE Capital, American Express, HSBC, and my last job was with the United Health Group as a data scientist. And I left my job in 2009. And since then, for the last 10 years, I have been into development, training, consulting. I'm representing India for the BRISC competition happens every year. And I'm certified SaaS professional, I'm certified Unix professional, certified PMP, and certified data scientist. And I've taken more than 1500 plus trainings in machine learning with deep learning with TensorFlow and other areas like Perl, Unix shell scripting, PMP. So let's start off for the day, guys. We are going to have a quick introduction about what is machine learning and all. Before that, let's talk about the company Cognitia. So, Cognitia is the world leading digital talent transformation company, which has trained more than 130,000 plus professionals worldwide, delivered training over 45 countries, over 7,000 industry veterans and instructors are associated with Cognitia. We have 450 plus corporate clients associated with us. So, our agenda for today is why Python is more useful in machine learning, what makes Python so popular, what are the major differences between Python and R, and why Python is preferred over R. So, because these are the two languages by which we can go for machine learning. So there's always a confusion in candidates like why Python, why not R, or why R, why not Python. So we'll take a deep dive into it. What are the industry trends in machine learning? How industries are working in machine learning? How machine learning can add values in different sectors of the business? What is data science? How data science fit into the organization? What are the different models of data science and machine learning? Or different types of machine learning, supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. We'll talk about the implementation of machine learning in banking and finance sector, automotive industry, healthcare, manufacturing, telecom, and retail. We'll talk about what is neural networks, what is deep learning, how deep learning efficiency is better as compared to machine learning algorithms. We'll talk about how TensorFlow works, Caffe, PyTorch, and Keras different library works, and what are the GPUs used in training them deep learning models. So this agenda is for 1.5 hours. I'll try to cover in that time, but maybe I'll extend 10 to 15 minutes depending on the flow. So who is using Python? So if a question comes, who all are the companies who are frequently using the Python for their development purposes? So YouTube is using Python for sharing system over a large group of people. Google is making extensive use of Python by using web search engine. So if you go and search anything in Google, it's basically the Python engine which is running in the backend. Dropbox storage system and its servers are implemented in Python. Raspberry Pi is using Python for their educational purposes. BitTorrent is using for peer-to-peer sharing of the files. NASA is used for programming purposes. NSA is using for cryptography and intelligence. Netflix is using for recommending movies to the different users. So these are the popular clients who are using Python for the last 15 years, and that's the reason they have not incurred a lot of cost in procurement of a software, and they use Python free of cost for the last 15 years, and they are the market leaders today. Now the question comes, why Python is in the field of machine learning. So one of the basic reasons why Python is because it's simple and easy to learn. Syntactically, it's more like an English language. We don't have to learn a lot of jargons, words, or different type of syntaxes. It's pretty easy to understand. Second reason is it is open source and free of cost. You can easily download Python from the internet, and you can install it in any of the operating system like Mac OS, like Ubuntu, like Solaris, like HPUX. Any of the machines you can install Python freely. So as I was saying, like Python is popular because of its easy syntax, because of its free of cost nature, and that is one of the biggest benefit of Python is that we don't have to pay any cost. So all the data analytics tools or libraries, whatever is present in the market, like SAS is one of the popular data warehousing tool, and the desktop license of SAS cost 3 lakh rupees in 2009. It must be in millions now. And you can imagine just to procure the software, company used to spend millions of dollars, which has saved now, which is a cost saving for a company if they go for a Python. Because Python can do each and everything what any other programming language can do. It can do very well data analytics. All the data analytics functionalities can be implemented through Python quite easily. Another reason why Python is popular because it's a very high level programming language. We don't have to worry about the declaration of data types. Like in other programming languages, we have to say int a, char b, float c. In Python, we don't have to tell what is the data type. For example, let me take a small example. So this is the Python tool called idle, which comes with the installation of Python. It's an interpreter of Python. This triple greater than sign means it's an interpreter of Python. Suppose I say name equal to John. I don't have to say, okay, this is a string type. Python automatically understand name is a string type. Suppose I say a equal to 10, type of a will tell you what exactly data type it has, the integer type. Similarly, if I say b equal to 10.22 and type of b, if I say it's a floating type. So we don't have to declare the data types in Python. It's pretty handy. Suppose you say from math import pi. So from the math library, I'm importing the pi, and the pi value is 3.14. And we can simply take an input radius from the user, for example, int of input. Because input function take a string, please enter the radius of circle. And I say radius is 5, and I say print area of a circle is pi into radius to the power of 2. And we get the radius area of a circle. So just in a 2 lines of code, we can find the area of a circle by simply importing a math library and getting pi from there. So we don't have to do all the declaration of variables, and we don't have to worry about a lot up to what decimal places we want pi answer. We can round it off to 2 places or 3 places, whatever we want. So Python is a pretty easy programming language in terms of syntax. Python is a very high level programming language which can do memory allocation on its own. The garbage collection is automatic in Python. So when the variables carry same value, the it has the same memory address. So garbage collection is something which is automatic in Python. Python is a portable in nature. You can uh, write down a Python code in Mac OS, move it to Windows, Windows to Solaris, Solaris to HPUX. So it is a platform independent programming language. It supports different programming paradigms. It is supporting object-oriented programming. So we can create a class, we can create objects, we can do inheritance, we can do encapsulation, we can do polymorphism. Polymorphism is something implicit in Python. You don't have to overload any operator. For example, suppose there is a string, first name as Amit and last name as, let's say, Kumar, and I want to say full name as first name plus a space plus a last name spelled wrong, NAMDI is spelled. So full name is Amit Kumar. The plus symbol is going to concatenate two strings. Suppose I said 10 plus 20, again it is going to add two numbers. Suppose I said 10.22 plus 90.88. We get the sum of two floating type numbers. So plus symbol can concatenate string, it can add two numbers, it can add two strings. It can concatenate strings, it can add two floating types. So all these things are possible with a plus operator. In other programming languages, we cannot use plus operator to concatenate strings. But in Python, it is quite flexible in nature. It is very much extensible in nature. You can write down the Python code and incorporate the C++ code into it or C code into it. You can embed other programming languages code into the Python. So it is very much extensible in nature. Now, why Python what makes Python so popular? Because of the improved programmers' productivity. Obviously, when you are writing lesser number of lines of code, your productivity get increased. It is extensive library support. There are 65,000 libraries in Python. Suppose you go to website pypy.org, pypi.org. You go to the website pypy.org and you search any of the library. Let's say you want to search for a cancer treatment. So you can see the library over here. There are so many libraries people have contributed, and you can download any one of them and start using it. So all the inbuilt functionalities are given pertaining to cancer. What all statistical analysis you want to do for a cancer patient, you can do it. Similarly for manufacturing, for healthcare, for marketing, for sales, any kind of a domain, your libraries are already existing over there. So these are the libraries. Like for example, I imported a math library from math import file. Suppose I import a full library, import math, and I say dir of math. I'll come to know what all functions are there in the math library. So math library contains gamma, GCD, the power, pi, radian, sine value, cosine value, tan value, factorial, absolute value, floor value. So these are the inbuilt functions or variables given over here. We can directly use it. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to do mathematical calculations on our own. So all the statistical and other properties are given in any of the libraries. Similarly, there's a library from SciPy, import stats. So this is again a library for scientific analysis, which is used for scientific analysis for all the complex functions in the stats. So you can find the p-value, z-value, kurtosis, standard deviation, variance, covariance, any kind of a statistical operation if you want to do. So you can say care of stats. You will see so many functions out there. So in stats, you can find kurtosis, you can find the normalized value, you can find the Riddle distributions, reciprocal of a value, you can find all the statistical terms that is possible is already given there. You just need to pass the function and pass the value, write on the function and pass the value, and things will be done. So it definitely improves the programmer's productivity. It is very much extensive in support in terms of libraries. It is very much integratable with other systems like Hadoop and Spark. So we have an ecosystem of Hadoop and Spark where you can write on the Python code and run it. It improves the productivity of a programmer. It is very much robust in nature. The Python codes are very robust. Program portability is there. You can write down the code in Mac OS, transfer it to Windows, Windows to Solaris, Solaris to HQX. It is very much interpreted. It is very much interactive and dynamic in nature, and it is object-oriented programming language. So this is why Python is so popular, because it can do everything what other programming languages can do. And if you see the differences, Python lines of code is one third the lines of code in Java and C++. Suppose you write 100 lines of code in Java or C++, you just need 33 lines in Python to do the same thing. If you see the job trends in machine learning, you can see for the last 6 years, there's a tremendous increase in the job requirements in Python. So there are more than 85% jobs which is coming on the Python side, and just C++, PHP, and other technologies, the jobs are there. So this is a Google trend of requirements of jobs. So out of total jobs, you can see the maximum number of jobs are pertaining to Python. 99 jobs are there in Python, PHP 66, and other Ruby and R is 36, and 11 and 36. Now the question comes, why Python, why not R, or why R, why not Python? So if you are a company which is generating reports and dashboards within the company, let's say I am a ICICI bank and I want to generate the reports within my company and I want to share it with the senior management, I would prefer R, because R is a programming language which can create beautiful graphs. It is very effective in terms of machine learning. But if I want to develop some end-to-end applications, suppose I want to develop a front end where user can interact, and where I want to develop some website, I want to connect to cloud, I want to connect to Azure or AWS, I want to run the code in the distributed environment, then Python is a popular programming language. So Python is called as the king of a data science. R is called as the golden child of a data science. So scope of Python is far bigger as compared to R. Python is like a Pacific Ocean, R is like an Indian Ocean. The scope of the Python is very large as compared to R. Python is a general purpose programming language which is very simple in syntax and compatibility with different operating systems. R is also simple in syntax but not as easier as Python. Python is very broad, efficient, extensible, and can be mastered very easily. R is an open source. It is also robust, but it is syntactically little bit difficult as compared to Python. And R is generally used by the companies who want to generate the reports within the organization. So the popular libraries in Python are NumPy, Matplotlib, and Pandas. In R, the popular libraries are Caret, Stinger, and ggplot. Dropbox is using Python for their programming purposes. R is usually done by the people who want to have a decision support and statistical analysis. So R is more like a statistical tool, but Python is an end-to-end development programming language. Suppose you want to develop a front-end application, you want to develop a form where user can fill, or you want to develop a banking application, you can do that in Python. But in R, you cannot do that. R is more of a reporting language and more of a statistical language in terms of generating dashboards.
So if you talk about the evolution and future of the machines, around 20 years back or 30 years back, the major focus was on hardware. People used to bother a lot about hardware, you can say advancement of the hardware. So you might have seen floppy drives, then come CD-ROMs, then you might have seen read-write CD-ROMs came, then flash drive came, and nowadays you can see we are no more dependent on hardware. Hardware has been scaled to a very small level. We can have a laptops, very thin laptops with a high computational power. So focus has been shifted from a hardware to a software, and then software to artificial intelligence. Now we are looking for an era where computers can talk to us, computer can think like us, computer can take decisions like us. So we are in the era where artificial intelligence like mimicking human behavior is a major focus. So our focus in today's world is that machines can behave like humans. They should take decisions like humans and they should work like humans. So if you talk about history of artificial intelligence came in 1956, although it is a very old concept, but it was not matured because of many reasons. No programming language was having capability to mimic human behavior. But Python has got a inbuilt algorithms there in it which can predict something for us. So machine learning is nothing but prediction. It is making a predictive analysis. So if somebody asks you what is machine learning, you simply have to say, okay, machine learning is anything which is predicting future based on historical data. Suppose I give you a last 20 years historical data of humidity, rainfall, and temperature and crop yield, and you can predict for the upcoming December what is going to be the crop yield. Then you are doing machine learning. Suppose you are booking a Ola cab. The cab is going to reach you in under 10 minutes. What this application is doing, this is predicting that the cab is going to reach you in 10 minutes. You speak in front of Alexa or Google Dot. When you speak, Alexa understands what you are saying. It is taking some action. How it is taking action? By predicting what you are saying. By looking at, by hearing the words, the machine can interpret what you are saying and it is predicting basically what you are saying. When you go to Amazon and you buy a laptop, Amazon is recommending you, why don't you buy a laptop bag as well? So there is no human intervention. So these products are highly correlated. So machine can predict, okay, why don't you buy a laptop bag as well when you're buying a laptop? So these machines are not predicting anything. Basically, we as a humans, as a data scientist, have programmed a machine in such a way that takes the right action. So based on our program, machine is taking that action. Machines are dumb terminals. They don't have their intelligence on its own. Now, if you talk about every minute what happens worldwide, 204 million emails are sent every minute, 20 new victims of to identify theft, 47,000 applications get downloaded, 20 million photo views are there, 100,000 new tweets are coming, $83,000 sales happening every minute. Wikipedia, 6 new Wikipedia articles get published every minute. And you can see the explosion of the data worldwide going on. So internet is full of data which is exploding on the daily basis. And in order to cater this huge amount of data, we need a scalable environment like Spark and Hadoop, which can process data in a faster way. Spark and Hadoop is nothing but the technologies by which we can divide the data into smaller parts called mapping, sending it to different machines and doing parallel computing and get the results back called reducing. So map reduce framework means dividing the data into small parts, maybe 1 GB of data you get and divide into 100 MB each and send it to different machines for parallel processing and then consolidating the results back to the server. So that is MapReduce framework. So with the explosion of data, we need a scalable environment like a Hadoop and Spark, and we need a good programming language which can process this huge amount of data. So the biggest confusion is what is data science, what is AI, what is ML, what is deep learning. So data science is a bigger domain which involves everything and anything pertaining to data, like data munging, data mining, data cleaning, data statistical analysis, data converting to graphs, finding the information. So anything which is in a raw format and converted to information comes under the picture or domain of data science. Now, data science has a subset called artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is something which is mimicking human behavior. So any machine which mimics like humans. Suppose around 15 years or 20 years back, when you want to get your blood group checked, the machines were not able to do. Humans used to do that to find the blood group of a blood, what are the RBC count, WBC count. Nowadays, what machines are there? You supply a blood drop, machine can give you a statistics about the blood in just seconds, 1 or 2 seconds. So artificial intelligence is something which is mimicking human behavior, which is trying to simulate what humans can do, and it comes under the umbrella of artificial intelligence. Machine learning is a subset of AI which is talking about predictive analysis. So machine learning is anything which is predicting the future for us. Suppose I give you some historical data and I want to predict. Suppose I want to I gave you some historical data of sales in a particular company, and I want to predict what is going to be the sale in the upcoming quarter, and you are predicting with great accuracy. That is machine learning. So machine learning is all about predictive analysis. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning which is again predicting but with a higher dimensionality. Suppose you have an image and you have an image having red, blue and green pixel, and you want to predict a new image. Suppose I supply you 1000 images of cats and dogs, and suppose I ask you to, okay, make an algorithm which can learn from these images And after that, once I supply a new image, my program can predict whether it's an image of a cat or a dog. So deep learning is all about predictive analysis, but with a higher dimensions, maybe two or three-dimensional and above data. But machine learning is all about two-dimensional data. Suppose you have a data in a form of a spreadsheet or a table, and you want to predict from there, then it is machine learning. And deep learning is a concept given by Google. There is a famous library called TensorFlow. TensorFlow is a library given by Google, and it is capable of creating a neural nets or the artificial layers in which system is learning, and from there it can take the output. So there is no difference in machine learning and deep learning. Only thing is that machine learning can work well on two-dimensional data in the form of rows and columns. Deep learning can work on high dimensionality of data. So Abhishek has asked, how do we understand and assume which algorithm to need to play in a data set? So Abhishek, the answer is it comes with a knowledge, it comes with experience. The larger the number of data sets you play around with the machine learning algorithms, the better the capability you have to understand what algorithm to run on which data. A lot of time it depends on the data as well. If your data is categorical, if your dependent variable is categorical, you use logistic regression, random forest. If your dependent variable is continuous, like in weather, or you can say temperature, which is continuous, then you can use linear regression over there. So it depends on the data, depends on the dependent variable what you are talking about, but it will come with experience. Deep learning, Shubham, examples are, suppose you move a Google Lens in front of a shop. What Google Lens do? It finds out the rating of a shop, what shop carries, how much people are talking about it, what are the reviews. So Google Lens is one of the typical example of deep learning. Image processing, when you go to Dubai airport, you see your visa is not getting manually checked. From the eye retina scan, you are approved to enter the country. So that is image recognition software which is written in deep learning. Then again, when you go to Facebook, you click a mouse in front of any face, you get the recommendation from Facebook. Why don't you tag this person? What is the name of this person? This is again application of deep learning. Then you supply an image of a parrot to a machine. Machine understands it's a parrot and color it in a right way. So image colorization is example of deep learning. Then text translation, you go to Google, type in English and convert to German. That is again application of deep learning. So these are all the applications of deep learning. So Akshat is asking platform where we can practice questions on machine learning. So there's a very good website, guys. Just note it down. It will definitely help you. There's a website called sanfoundry.com. If you go to this website, you will see 1,000 Python machine learning questions and 1,000 Python problem solving questions. So if you go to 1,000 Python MCQs, you can see multiple choice questions pertaining to any topic, and you can click on that, and answers also given there. So this is a good website, sanfoundry.com. Let me ping you this. So data science is a bigger domain. Within that, artificial intelligence is something mimicking human behavior. Machine learning is all about predictive analysis. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning which talks about higher dimensionality of a data solving. So data science and machine learning fits into organization. So if you talk about data science is all about business strategy, domain knowledge, communication, presentation, visualization, stats. And within data science, we have a machine learning. Within machine learning, we have a deep learning. So the main difference between the two is that data science is a broader term, which not only focuses on algorithm and stats, but also takes care of the entire data processing methodology. So data science takes care of entire data processing methodology, how data will flow from one place to another, how it is going to be handled. If we talk about approach of data science, first of all, we formulate the question, we have a business understanding, we use the analytical approach to analyze the data, we gather the data to analyze the problem, then we collect, and then we understand and prepare the data. Third is analyzing the data. So first of all, we formulate the question. Second is to gather the data. Third is to analyze the data completely, how it looks like, plot different types of graphs, take some inferences out of it, and then finally we evaluate it and make it a product. So that next time when the problem comes, we can directly come to the solution. So this is the approach in any of the data science project, where we have some problem statement in hand. To solve it, we collect some data, then we analyze it completely, and then we create a product which can do similar thing for the new data. Now there are two approaches in data science, top-down approach and a bottom-up. In a top-down approach, we have a business problem. Based on that, we use a domain knowledge to collect the information and finally find the facts and figures. Bottom approach can be, we have a fact and figures there with us, we have a raw data, we don't know what to do with this, we fetch the information from there. Using a domain knowledge, we can solve any kind of a problem. Like for example, when you go to Amazon, Amazon already have your KYC details. It knows what is your gender, what is your location, what is your spending power, your purchase history. Amazon knows everything about you. And suppose I am a person who is a data scientist in Amazon, I would leverage that information to give some lucrative offers to you. So if you are a person who is spending more than 20,000 rupees per month in buying some grocery products, so I'll give you some discounts pertaining to grocery products and promote more sales. So based on your purchase history. So based on the raw data, I'm collecting the information and getting the new problem solved. That is bottom-up approach. Top-down approach is you have a business problem. Business problem is, let's say, sale is not increasing. Then based on domain knowledge, you fetch the information why sale is not increasing, and then you increase the sales. So these are the two approaches. Depending on the need and requirement, people go for these two approaches. If we talk about how machine learning can add values to different business sectors, so we can see in agriculture, energy, manufacturing, media, telecom, everywhere machine learning is getting used. And if you see the bigger bubble means the bigger impact. So impact score of 1.9 is highest. So you can see personalized advertising, navigation of the roads, predictive and energy maintenance, diagnosing a disease, optimize clinical trials. So you can see there is a high impact. And if you talk about volume of data which machine learning can handle, so you can see from a low priority to high priority, fraudulent transactions, financial products, personalized crops, individual conditions, discover new consumer trends are getting solved by machine learning algorithms. If we talk about how organizational operationalize models driven by data science, so if you see the impact in any industry, in automotive industry, there is a real-time optimization, strategic optimization, predictive maintenance, radical personalization, discovery of new trends. So you can see the impact. Higher the color means higher the impact. So in agriculture, finance, and consumer products, I'm sorry, you can see there's a huge impact. So in all the areas pertaining to any industry, there is a huge impact of machine learning. If you take an example of machine learning, Netflix is recommending movies. So recommendations made by the machine learning. So 75% of things what we watch in Netflix is recommended by the different users or based on the watching history. Suppose you are watching thriller movie every time, machine is going to recommend a thriller movie to you to watch next time. Now, if you talk about Facebook, if you go to any Facebook page and you click on any photo, you will see automatic system is going to recommend you, why don't you tag this person or name this person. Alexa is another example. You speak in front of Alexa and ask it to turn off the light or book a cab for you or buy a pizza for you or play some song. Alexa can take all the actions for you. If you talk about spam filtering, the Gmail and every mail has got a spam filtering mechanism. So it is looking for a keyword like a lottery or a prize, and based on that, it is filtering a non-essential mails from your inbox. So machine learning is future of the industry, which is demand for today, and more than 2 million jobs globally by the year 2020, strongly written 2019. So more than 2 million jobs are globally there by the end of 2020. So machine learning is what? It's a subset of artificial intelligence which provides systems ability to learn automatically and improve from experience without being explicitly programmed. So let's understand this definition. So machine has got the ability to learn automatically. So answer to this query is machine don't have the ability to learn. We as a data scientist program machine in such a way, we write down the program in such a way that on supplying the data, machine get inferences out of it and find the equation internally and helps us to solve the future problems. And we don't have to reprogram every time. Once the code is ready, you can just need to supply more and more data to it, and system becomes mature day by day. So machine learning is all about predictive analysis, where you are taking historical data, finding the relationship between independent and dependent variable, create some equation internally, and then reuse that equation for future purposes. So there are three types of machine learning: supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning. Supervised machine learning is the one where we know the column headings completely, where we know our data completely. Suppose I give you a telecom data and you know the data completely, what the field is talking all about, whether what is the name of a customer, what is the gender of a customer, what are the purchase history of the customer. When you know the column headings, it is known as supervised machine learning. So you know what is the shape of apple, what is the color of an apple. You supply all that data to a machine and use some algorithm, maybe logistic regression or linear regression or random forest, to map the independent and dependent variables. And once equation has been formulated, system is going to use the same equation for predictive analysis. So supervised machine learning is where you have an input variable, you have output variable, and the algorithm is going to find the relationship between input and output, create some equation internally, and use the same equation for future purposes. Supervised machine learning example can be supply image of a duck and not a duck, and supervised machine learning algorithm can predict in future whether the duck is there or not. So what are the use cases of supervised machine learning? Document classifier is one of the typical use case. So you supply hundreds of documents with the data types, different types, and system can learn from it and predict what is the new document is all about. Similarly, predicting a weather, whether it's a sunny day or a cloudy day or a rainy day, we can predict the weather based on historical data, and that is again a supervised learning example where we know the column heading, okay, this is the weather and this is the day, this is the month, this is the year, and based on that we can predict the weather for tomorrow. Similarly, fingerprint analysis, every fingerprint is unique, so we can learn from a fingerprint what are the different shapes or contours or different pixels are there in the fingerprint, and we can learn from there. And like typical example is a mobile phone which is learning from your fingerprint and taking the action next time when you unlock it. That is again predictive analysis. So these are the popular machine learning, supervised machine learning algorithms: linear regression, logistic regression, decision tree, random forest, and naive-bayes classifier. These are the popular machine learning algorithms. If we talk about unsupervised learning, unsupervised is the one where you do not know the data completely. Let's say I supply, let's say I give you certain shapes. Let's say you give a certain shapes to a preschool kid who is of 2 years, and you give a shape of a circle, rectangle, triangle, and you ask this kid to classify them or cluster them together, and he do all the circles together, he club all the squares together, he club all the rectangles together. So what he's doing, he's clustering these things based on similarity. So when you're clustering things based on similarity, it is known as unsupervised learning. We do not know the dependent variable, we do not have a labeled data there with us. For example, let's say an archaeologist finds a bone inside the earth. Archaeologists do not know whose bone is this. Is it a human bone? Is it a fish bone? Is it a dinosaur bone? So what he do? He understands from the bone what is the color of the bone, what is the shape of the bone, texture of the bone, size of the bone, and based on that he compares with the historical data in the museums and then classify, okay, this bone belongs to a dinosaur cluster. So what we are doing here, we are predicting based on the historical data by finding some hidden insights into it. We are finding the hidden insights into a data and cluster it based on similarity. So we do not know what picture it is. So we are clubbing all the animals together with the similarities. So all the animals, all the birds having beaks, all the animals having canine teeth, all the animals who are herbivorous have a long ears. They're clubbed together as together. All the carnivorous animals clubbed together. So based on similarities, we are clubbing things together, and all the clustering algorithm belongs to this category. Unsupervised machine learning example can be a party in a house. Let's say there's a party going on in the house and lights are off. Still, you can recognize the singer, right? By listening the voice, you can recognize who is singing. That's example of a unsupervised learning where you have not seen the singer, but still you can name a singer by listening the voice. Similarly, a football match. Let's say there's a football match going on. You do not know the football match, but still you can figure it out which team is playing against which team. By looking at the dress code, you can figure it out. Okay, this team is playing against the another team. So this is another example of a football match. Similarly, Amazon recommendation system. So you have a different product. So Amazon server do not know what product it is. Based on similarities, it is clubbing the things together, all the electronic items together, all the food items together, grocery items together, all the electronics item together, electrical items together. The examples of unsupervised machine learning is k-means clustering, a priori algorithm for market basket analysis, hierarchical clustering, as well as k-nearest neighbor. So these are the popular algorithms for unsupervised machine learning. So k-nearest neighbor is basically a supervised, not a unsupervised, wrongly written over here. It should be k-means clustering and c-means clustering. Then comes the reinforcement learning. Reinforcement learning is a learning with experience, slow and gradual learning. So like we did a reinforcement learning in our school days. We passed the 10th standard, then 12th standard. We went for a graduation, then post graduation, then we did a job for many years. What happened in those many years? We learned something new every day and night, and now we are enough mature to take good decisions. So that is a reinforcement learning, learning with experience, slow and gradual learning, like a manless car. So manless car is not made in a day. In a simulated environment, scientists daily supply some 100 images to a algorithm, and 100 images are taking some actions. Based on those images, car is taking some action. It may be right, it may be wrong. And once all the images are supplied, now car is enough mature to take decisions based on those images. Like aerodynamics industry, in the older times, people used to fly the planes on their own. Now most of the flights are running in the autopilot mode, because the autopilot mode can take millions of decisions in 1 second, but humans can take only one or two decisions in a second. So that is a more powerful nature, and that is the reason autopilot mode is a far safer mode in flying as compared to the human intervention. So this reinforcement algorithms example can be a Alexa device. When you buy a new Alexa device, you realize that when you speak in front of Alexa, Alexa is not taking decisions as per your will. It is not understanding each and every word. But slowly and gradually, when you keep on talking to Alexa, the time will come, Alexa becomes so mature that even you whisper in front of Alexa, Alexa takes a decision. So that is an example of a reinforcement learning. So as we discussed about supervised machine learning is the one where we have to know our data completely. We know the column headings and we know the complete data set. In unsupervised learning, we don't know any of the column headings, or we have unsupervised data in terms of labels are missing in that. Reinforcement learning is learning with experience. So what is reinforcement learning? There's a famous Pavlov's dog theory here. So Pavlov was having a dog and he used to feed that dog on a daily basis. One day he decided to ring a bell and then give a food to a dog. And he rings a bell, give a food to a dog. Again he rings a bell, give a food to a dog. And after 10 days, he observed when he rings a bell, dog starts salivating. So what he did, he converted the natural reflex action to an induced reflex action. And this learning could not happen in a single day. This learning took some time, around 10 days. And once dog is trained, the dog can salivate just hearing the bell. The dog is not salivating by hearing the bell in the very first day, but after 10 days of continuous training, the dog starts salivating. So this is example of a reinforcement learning that with slow and gradual learning, systems get mature day by day. Like you might have seen in the Alexa, like when you speak in front of Alexa for 10 days continuously and keep on talking, and Alexa becomes smarter and smarter. You might have seen on the chat bots in different websites, in a banking domain, in a healthcare domain, when you have some query, the automated chat bots are answering you. So what can we do with machine learning? So obviously we can solve many problems like finding the email, whether it's spam or not, is the transaction fraudulent or not, what is the market value of the particular house, in which segment the house lies. Now, if you talk about use cases in classification, so if you use classification algorithms like decision trees, like random forest, we can figure it out whether the person is male or female. We can solve the problem pertaining to mail, whether it's a spam or non-spam mail. We can use in healthcare by finding cancer, whether it's a benign or a malignant cancer. In the retail options, we can classify the highly selling and less selling products using market basket analysis. So a lot of e-shopping portals like Amazon, Flipkart, they're using it for the retail business. There's an algorithm in Python called a priori, which is helping us to do market basket analysis. We can use machine learning for anomaly detection. So you might have observed when you swipe a card and your card limit is 2 lakh rupees and you swipe it in a single day or single transaction 2 lakh, what happens? The bank automatically calls you whether you are the same person or not. So we can find out any transaction is fraud or not. If someone is trying to hack our network, we can figure it out using machine learning algorithm. In the telecom domain, we can find out whether it's a fraudulent call or not. We can use regression analysis or regression algorithms to find the market value of the house, whether it's going to be rainy day or tomorrow. So whenever the dependent variable is continuous in nature, we can use regression algorithms. We can use clustering algorithms to find in which segment the house lies, in what is the customer segments depending on the product. What customer can buy what kind of product, we can use clustering algorithms. Like K-means clustering is a popular algorithm here. Similarly, in reinforcement learning, we have a manless car. So we already have a manless car named Tesla, which is manufactured in US. And based on the images taken by the car every second, the machine can learn or understand what decision to take. In the manufacturing industry, robots are getting mature for faster processing. So machine learning, if you talk about banking and finance sector, we have a back office operation optimization. We can do risk management. We can find out the price of a particular commodity. We can find out the customization on the particular products. So we can help it. AI can help in resource management, predictive analysis, by finding the new patterns, offering some personalizations. You might have seen when you go to any banking site, you observe that there's a dashboard which is applicable to you only. So we can have a customized dashboards using machine learning. If we talk about marketing, insurance, land use, seismic studies, we can use machine learning for insurance sector, whether the insurance can be given to the customer or not, whether the area is prone to seismic or earthquakes or volcanic eruptions, whether the land use is good for mining purpose or agriculture purpose, on what customer segments we need to market what product. So these things can be held by machine learning algorithms. Similarly, we can cluster the documents. We can use NLTK library in Python, which is helpful in clustering different documents based on similarities. So if you have all the political news, you can club all the political news in one folder using NLTK. Similarly, you can find out what is the area where you can open a school based on the segmentation, based on the clustering, what all different areas where we can open the school, where the market is quite potential. Now we can use deep learning libraries for image recognition or text translation. So deep learning is, what is deep learning? Deep learning is a particular kind of machine learning that achieves greater power and flexibility by learning to represent the world as nested hierarchy of concept and abstraction. So here we are dealing with neural networks. Here we create a neural net diagrams and we pass the data into a neural nets, and neural nets gives us the final outcome based on the learning done by the different images. So all the image recognition softwares, text recognition, text translation, image colorization, all these algorithms belongs to deep learning. And deep learning is a concept given by Google. It was a paid one around 2 years back, but Google recently, around 1.5 year, 2 years back, they made TensorFlow as a library which is open source. Now we can leverage the facilities in TensorFlow and we can solve complex multi-dimensional problem. So in deep learning algorithms can automatically do feature selection. It can find out the size, close, perpendicular, equal size. So looking at the image, deep learning algorithms can figure it out what shape we are providing to it. Or we can supply some images of cats and dog, millions of images, and from there deep learning networks can identify whether, based on the characteristics of a pixel, whether it's a dog or a cat, and it can predict for a new image. So if you talk about machine learning versus deep learning is machine learning. So deep learning is nothing new. It is just a area which is dealing with multi-dimensionality of a data, like images, like text, like natural language. But machine learning algorithms can solve problems pertaining to two-dimensional data. So if you talk about the performance of deep learning algorithm is far better as compared to any other machine learning algorithm. So if you talk about performance, deep learning algorithm behave far better as compared to any other machine learning algorithm. The accuracy of deep learning algorithm is far better. And there is no more hardware dependency now, but in deep learning, yes, we have a hardware dependency that we need to have a GPUs installed in a machine. GPU is a hardware device that is graphical processing unit. NVIDIA used to supply these video cards. If you remember, around 10 years back, we used to have a big desktops where display card is separately installed. So that display card is nothing but GPU. So nowadays laptops have GPUs inbuilt there in it. So we don't have a hardware dependency nowadays. But if you have an older system and you want to learn the deep learning algorithms, you should install or you should buy a separate memory card or separate display card and install it in your motherboard. So in deep learning, feature engineering is automatic. You don't have to tell, okay, these are the columns which are important, these are not. But in machine learning, we need to tell what all columns are really important for machine learning. And based on that, we can do predictive analysis. So deep learning algorithms can figure it out what is the image and label it correctly. Like a Google Lens, if you move a Google Lens in front of a shop, it can figure it out what exactly the shop is all about. And these are the popular libraries in deep learning: TensorFlow, Microsoft, CNTK, Caffe. So deep learning can be achieved using any of these libraries present in Python. Even R has some capabilities of working on deep learning. If we talk about GPUs getting used in training, so GPUs are processing images in a much faster manner as compared to CPUs. So because deep learning algorithms deal with images, image recognition, so there is a algorithms for CNN, convolutional neural networks. There are algorithms RNN, recurrent neural networks for text processing. So GPUs are used for image processing in a faster way. Now it's execution time. It's a time when you can start learning Python and grow in that area, because there's a huge demand in the market pertaining to data scientist, data analyst, data engineer. So these roles are still open in many of the big companies, so you can plan your execution when you want to start and how do you want to start. So I've given you a brief overview, like what is machine learning, what is deep learning, what is all about artificial intelligence. So how did you find today's session, guys? Any comments, any feedbacks from anyone? Okay, thanks for your time, guys. Hopefully I'm going to meet you in some of the live sessions. Thanks for your time. Have a great day. Bye bye and take care.